The U.S. and China wrapping up the second and final day of this round of trade talks. For Analysis, we're joined by Dave Brat, former congressman and senior VP of Liberty University's Business School. Also joining us is Bruce de Torres, communication director at the American Small Business League. Good to have you both with us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get straight into it. President Trump, we heard it just earlier, saying that the weekend's U.S.-China trade talks was a very good meeting. He's calling it great progress, but there is little detail so far. And at the same time, China's state-run media, Xinhua, has warned that compromise will not win respect when it comes to these talks. So we'll start with you, Dave. What do you expect to come from this round of talks?
I expect quite a lot, actually, because China's economy has been decaying. That's been widely covered. But what hasn't been widely covered are the riots in the streets right now. People losing their jobs, their wages, their retirements, all that. That's some huge pressure on the CCP. And there's folks waiting in the wings for Xi's seat as well. So they're talking big. But, you know, I did economics my whole life. China was making roughly $1,000 a year per capita income in 1980. Now we've done everything for them. They're over $20,000 per capita now. Their economy's closing in on us. Now we want basic fairness, right? We let them in every free trade program there is. And the irony is some of the free traders in the U.S. are fighting back against this tariff war, which is going to end up probably with reduced tariffs and something closer to free trade. Yeah. The Fortune 500 guys who think you can do free trade with a communist totalitarian surveillance state, I fail to see that one.
Bruce, your take.
We're very hopeful. We think it's going to take a few rounds and a few steps. There are big things that both countries have to look at in terms of how this impacts the value of the dollar, and very, very long-range things like reindustrializing the United States. I love optimism and bluster. President Trump has tons of that because we need that as humans to get some wind in our sails and have hope and optimism. The caution coming from China in terms of their evaluation of just this weekend, that's to be expected to save face. Long term, we have got to do everything we can to reindustrialize, in our opinion. It's all about being independent. It's all about manufacturing for ourselves. It's all about jobs. And it's all about taking into consideration the huge movements of the last many decades. Tons of global money and global money pressure has caused the United States to do what we've done over the last many decades, to cause this horrific financial situation that we find ourselves in. The trade deficit, the value of the dollar are items inside the global picture of great bubbles, great overhangs, great financial economic precariousness. So anything that brings harmony and gets nations as big and powerful as the US and China talking, let alone collaborating, let alone being friends, is good for future generations like our kids and our grandkids, which we need to think about a lot more than we do.
Now let's take it down to the micro scale for a moment. Back to businesses right now and what they're feeling. We do hear some businesses saying, for example, a bicycle store saying it can't easily source parts from China anymore. A hat store saying it's actually stocked up much ahead of time, so they're going to weather this storm just fine. What are you feeling and seeing from businesses out there, especially small businesses? I'll ask you, Bruce, being with the Small Business Association.
You've just well summarized it. There are examples of horrors of, my gosh, the prices we're going to have to charge. Are we going to lose our employees? And yet, on the other hand, there are many indicators since Trump took office and started doing all of his moves that show that we're not so prone to a recession as yet so many analysts are saying. So it's a wild ride to wake up every morning and see what's new and to imagine what's my next 30, 60, 90 days looking like. And it's from our perspective, it's all about America's small businesses and what can be done to bolster them, support them, to the end of thriving and creating jobs.
There's a lot of change going on for sure. I want to turn to you now, Dave, and look at the impact on consumers. Of course, prices are rising more generally, but also with these tariffs. And when asked about that in a recent NBC interview, President Trump argued that energy costs, specifically gasoline, were going down. And I suppose implying that that could equalize the costs and the pain that consumers may be feeling in other ways. What's your take on that?
Yeah, my take is other than Epic and NTD and some rational news sources, the mainstream media has just been doing propaganda, right? The CPI, the inflation rate's down, the PPI, the producer piece is down. The irony is the Federal Reserve had no problem bailing out the Wall Street, right? With the 07-08 financial crisis, bailed out the gazillionaires, pumped money in during Biden's election, kept interest rates at 0% for a decade, and now they won't provide a little bit of liquidity for a transitional period when we're moving against China. I too wish we could get along with China, but the people that do study this seriously know that Xi gave a speech a year ago and said we're going all in Marxist-Leninist. We're not going to do any economic reforms, and we're giving up on harmony and peace language. We're going to a war footing. And they're doing precisely that. If you look at their moves in the outer island chains and they're creating stuff. And so the consumer, the producer, right now, there's going to be some blips. There's no doubt about it. But until China joins the League of Nations here, bad choice of words, but until they learn to play nice in the sandbox, which they don't know how to do it. And the CCP, and it's not the Chinese people I'm talking about, right? 1.4 billion people made in the image of God are being repressed. We need to help them by fighting tough right now while we got some leverage.
All right, Bruce, Trump wants China to open its markets to American businesses, and he has said just as much after the first day of talks yesterday. But he also says he wants to restore manufacturing in the U.S. Can the two coexist? Is he being honest and straightforward with us here? Does he want both things? How do you see it?
Well, I've got to take him at his word at any step of the game, and yet he's a fascinating leader because 5 days later, 10 days later, 2 weeks later, he can just demonstrate a completely different reality, come at it from a completely different angle, take the position that he was just disparaging earlier. So the manufacturing disparity and the export-import disparity is so gargantuan right now that, again, it's this chess game that's just absolutely fascinating to watch. But in all seriousness, we have got to restore our independence and national sovereignty by our economic strength. And that comes from one primary vector, which is what we manufacture, produce, and sell to ourselves. That's a big
topic.
Indeed.
Indeed. And just in our last 30 seconds, Dave, as a former congressman, just to get your take on this, the midterms are not far off, so that's potentially putting some time pressure and other pressures in all of these negotiations. And also, China and Xi Jinping, the leader there, is under some political pressure, according to our reporting, as well as having a struggling economy. So just your final thoughts on how these dynamics could potentially be impacting the current negotiations.
Yeah, well, I agree. The last remarks on Trump's negotiating style, it's the most sporadic thing you ever seen in your life. But, he's weighing the pieces you just mentioned all at the same time. He's the CEO of the country, right? So he's got geopolitical forces at work. He's got the bond market vigilantes. He's got to worry about global stability and financial markets. And so he'll just throw out the toughest moves possible, see what the reactions look like. And then you'll see him kind of converge back in like he's doing right now, going from 140 to 80, and we'll see where it all ends up at. And then people say he doesn't know what he's doing. It's not rational, which your guest did not say. He's just correct. He's negotiating, and it's sporadic. But there is an end game here, right? We've been ripped off. The G20 have 200% to 300% tariff, non-tariff barriers against us. Not according to Trump's chart, which is semi-accurate, but according to the World Bank data, along with Bank of America data.
All right.
And that has not been publicized.
And we hope to hear more from you both on this very deep topic. Thank you so much for your time today. Dave Brat, Bruce de Torres, good to speak with you both.
Great show.
Thank you.